Welcome to Real Talk with Jill and Tia. And as you can see, our special guest, Sharon KK Beals. Woohoo! In the house.
Morning.
And I love that you're wearing your signature red too.
Well, I started off in pink and then the dog, like, okay, back to the wash you go. So
Kids, dogs, it's all the same.
that's right.
Well, we are so happy to have you here with us, Sharon. And we're also happy to have the audience here with us out there. So we always say, you know how we always start virtual things, right? Like, hey, drop a hello in the chat. Where are you joining us from, whether you're live or on replay, because we want to share in this with you. Get it? Share in with you.
It tells me I have to connect to YouTube to join
Huh.
the chat. That's new.
Well, you shouldn't really have to, but I mean, if StreamYard's asking you to do something different, sometimes what happens is that the comments won't actually show up. So sorry,
Okay.
audience. Sometimes you know how technology works. Sometimes when it works great, yay. When
Yes.
it doesn't, boo.
And not being on the AV team in high school, yeah, I'm gonna leave that with you. I'm gonna leave all the chat stuff to you. How's that sound?
Well, we should see them come up if they do, and it's deciding to work today. It's about I would almost say Pareto, like 80% of the time it works.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll see. But yes, we're so happy to have you here, and I think people are excited to know about the make your own rules. And of course, because that's part of making your own rules is also breaking some rules.
That would be true. I read that title, and my first thought was, "Oh my God, it's made me like to be like a pirate. I'm going to make up my own rules." But just like Pirates Code, I have requirements. I have requirements. I don't like Pirates Code because, you know, just when you say expectations, it's sort of like, meh, squishy. Requirements.
We understand requirements versus just expectations. And if you're thinking pirate, then I'm going to have to do the whole like, are you sure? That's maybe what people ask you when you say we have some expectations. So
I got expectations too, but at one point I had teenagers, and expectations don't work so well with teenagers. I have requirements.
that is a whole nother show.
Yeah.
Like that's more of an entire series, like season. That's a whole nother season. So well, welcome. If you are joining us for the first time, you have a treat in store today because Sharon is, I mean, is it fair to say, I mean, you're like an industry legend. Like a lot of people know you because you have done a lot of good work in the industry, not only like with your work, but also just how you reach out and help people. So we're so glad to have you on with us.
Thanks.
And of course,
I do appreciate it. Legend makes me sound like I'm 197 years old. So
I know that term maybe like an industry. I don't know what's the right term in there. Legend, goddess, guru, rock star, badass.
I used to like Tsarina until Russia invaded the Ukraine. No, in all sincerity, the industry has been extremely good to me. And I am very thankful and blessed to be able to give back to. And when I say the industry, I mean the entire food industry, because while I'm predominantly a meat and poultry gal, I have worked across the network. I've been worked for Arby's for almost 10 years, and U.S. Foods and other places. So I've been in manufacturing, I've been in meat, I've been in poultry, I've been in Jamocha syrup.
That's a whole nother
horsey sauce. That's a whole different. That's a whole different area.
Well, and that's why we're glad to have you on, because our mission too is like, how do we help people like step into their leadership? How do we help? I know we'll probably talk about, it's not food safety culture, it's culture, it's being a team, it's taking care of people while driving business results. Like they do exist hand in hand. And that's what we do here at Catalyst. That is our mission. That is why we exist, because we want to help transform how we lead in food so that it is, that we feel fulfilled, that we can show up as our authentic selves, that we can really be a business partner versus just that food safety quality function over there. So.
Yes, the old department that just says no.
Yeah, like we are shedding, like collectively as an industry, I think we're shedding that stereotype.
And I agree with that. There was a post on LinkedIn from Casey's, the convenience store, which when we lived in Sioux City, best $5 pepperoni pizza on the planet, and it was 2 minutes from the house. It was awesome.
They're amazing.
But they talked about the level of engagement that they have, starting with their head of their corporate chef and head of innovation. And so my comment was, when you invite us in from the get-go, that gives the food safety quality team that opportunity to go, okay, here are the potential pitfalls. We have runway to see how we can ameliorate them in some way, shape, or form. But, when you come to us at the 11th hour and 59th minute before lunch and you say, I want to do rabbit jerky on a stick, the answer is always going to be no, even though that's my favorite new product because it's handheld, it's portable, it's, high in protein.
It's a real product?
Someday someone's going to glom onto that idea and make rabbit jerky on a stick, probably at some Renaissance festival, better than a turkey leg. It just, the sooner the team comes in, because what's also important in new product development is to fail fast. You've got this huge entire funnel and pipeline of things that if you're wasting all your time on everything in there when some of them will never come to fruition, that's a waste of resources, and none of us has that kind of time to spare these days. So bring the team in early, just like Casey's talked about the other day on LinkedIn, and then together, hey, here are the hurdles. I'll help you overcome them, but I need time to do it. And if we decide that it's not the juice is not worth the squeeze, as the expression goes, then you move on to something else.
And Melanie and Amy from Casey's were on the show about a month ago in April. So if someone's curious about kind of what their magic is, get a little bit more insider information, go back. Our YouTube channel stores all of our LinkedIn Live. So go on back there and check it out. So
awesome.
Yes. So Sharon, there are going to be people probably in our audience because they may not have come from, and I know you're in more areas than just meat and poultry, but I think in meat and poultry, most people probably have heard of you or know you. In other spaces, they're getting to know you and know you already. So would you even share with us, how did you get into food? And how did you get into not only just food, but food safety and quality?
Okay, so my degree is in human nutrition and foods from Cornell, and I knew I did not want to be a dietitian, but beyond that, I didn't know what I wanted to be. Did spend a summer at the Lipton salad dressing facility in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, and I thought, R&D, this is fun, But when I graduated, the only job out of college came through an IFT interview. Went down to New Orleans, Superdome, before the disaster had struck, back in 1980. And I sat down at a table that had a sign on it that said Land of Frost. I'd never heard of Land of Frost. I'm from New Jersey. Who are these people? And I thought, oh my God, poor Land O'Lakes folks. They got their sign screwed up. I sat down, and John Butts and one of his colleagues was there. And John says to me in his very gravelly voice, even back then, asked if I'd ever been inside a meat packing plant. And I very quickly said, no, but I've seen Rocky twice. Does that count? Now, of course, all my friends were mortified. Oh my God, you're never supposed to be flipping a job interview. In retrospect, it worked out well. John laughed, the other guy didn't. But John's thought was, you were honest and had a sense of humor. So I did not pick the meat industry. The meat industry picked me, if you will. So off I go to the wilds of Hammond, Indiana. When you grow up on the East Coast, you don't know that there's really life past Pennsylvania. So didn't know a soul aside from one of my dad's Marine Corps buddies who lived in Hammond. We had neighbors when I lived in New Jersey that were from the Black Hills of South Dakota, and we thought that was
where is that
place on the
foreign
planet.
land?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's how I wound up in the meat business. And back in the day, it was quality control. I was a quality control inspector on second shift. And when they, Land of Frost, closed the plant up and graciously offered to transfer me to Searcy, Arkansas, I thought, oh my God, Chicago's, not quite what I'm used to as it is. it's when I went to work for Arby's. And, food safety back then wasn't even I don't want to say it wasn't a thing, but it certainly wasn't a title. It wasn't a degree that you could earn in school.
Mhm.
There was HACCP, certainly, from the Pillsbury Company and sending Tang up with the astronauts. Um, but it wasn't something that was done in on a day in, day in, day out basis. I mean, certainly we did sanitation, we did pre-op, we did all those elements,
Mhm.
but really food safety grew up and then really got, 1996 when the mega rig dropped, that's when it was like, okay, we have the HACCP part, we have the pathogen reduction part, and then of course the SSOPs underlying all of it. So that's when my job really shifted in focus from more quality based to be more food safety regulatory compliance based. And from there, moved through the industry and wound up here. Now I'm on my own and helping others.
And helping others. I love how you kind of wash over the other stuff because I mean, and a lot of in that like washed era.
Well, we moved a lot, and I am I'll put in a plug for my spouse because without him, we wouldn't have moved from, oh God, Indiana to Georgia, Georgia back to the Chicago suburbs, Chicago to Sioux City, Sioux City to Northwest Arkansas, to Williamsburg, Virginia, up to Canada for 6 years, where I left my children, which that's my little tip. You want to cut your children off from your payroll, leave them in a foreign country. Back to the Chicago suburbs and now to Texas. So, worked for meat companies and other companies along the way, and have picked up things from each and every one of them of things I want to be. And here I am. So.
And it's really cool because sometimes sometimes humans are known as like we like to be grounded in certain spaces and like, cool, if that's who you are, lean in. But also this opportunity of like exploring and trying new things and like being open to these opportunities that come up. Because sometimes that's hard to like wrap our heads around. Like there's all these things out there that are unknown, but like you can do these things.
And it's a lot easier these days. There's when the border was shut down with Canada because of COVID. I didn't see my children physically for 2 years, which is hard. But at least there's this.
Yeah.
You think back to the Spanish flu, you had snail mail. So, it's a lot easier to stay connected and stay in contact. When I would call home from Indiana to New Jersey, it was a very expensive long distance call. You don't even think about that anymore. Well, if you thought about how much your phone, your cell phone bill is,
like that would have been one long distance call back in the day.
Yeah, exactly. But, so it's a lot easier. And I see, as I talk to students, I'm very engaged in the American Meat Science Association, and the days of, oh my God, I can't leave fill in the blank state, usually up in the, upper Midwest. How could I move to the big city of Council Bluffs? I'm thinking, if you think Council Bluffs is a big city, okay. I get it from your perspective, it is, but there's a lot more willingness to up and move. And I think because of these types of platforms, it's a lot easier to stay connected to your family.
It is, right? You don't have to feel so alone and all of those things. So
that's right.
But I think along the way too, like I remember when I'm not even sure how we connected and I got your cell phone. I was like, this is super cool. Like you're my phone a friend because you have so much experience and you know so many people. But that's also part of just like this kindness and generosity that you've brought everywhere you've gone, with willing to make time for people and to give back. And I think that says a lot about, who you are and the leadership style that you have.
I appreciate that. I mean, let's face it, without people,
we're nothing.
There's the old joke about, God, if I could only get rid of the customers and the employees, life would be great at my job. Yeah, but then you wouldn't have one. So with all due respect to everybody who's been an employee or a customer of mine. But yeah, it's, had a lot of bosses along the way. You learn things from all of them, what to do, maybe what not to do. You create your own style. the golden rule still applies, tempered with situational leadership.
Mm.
Because, not everybody wants to be treated like you want to be treated.
That's a really good
Politeness,
point.
kindness, all those things, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But, situational leadership, people are at different levels of their own development. Do they need a little more day to day? I hate to say micromanagement, but do they need more of that at the get go? As opposed to if you're on the other side, it's, hey, check in. Here's the goal. See ya. Call me if you have questions. Which is like how I like to operate. Along the way, we talked about my rules. So,
Yeah.
so
Well, because you're known for having some rules, or I'm
I
not
have
sure
some
you're known
rules.
for rules. Are you known for that, or is that just something that came up because we were like, what should we talk about on the show?
No, I have some rules, and the first one is if you are leading people, you need to be developing them. And while not everybody's cut out to be the lead goose in the formation, nor do they want to be, and that was a really important lesson I learned as a young manager at Arby's. I was lamenting someone on my team that aspired to go no further than the level they had already achieved.
Yeah.
Yet they wanted to have manager in their title, but yet not manage anybody. And I was talking to the HR manager over lunch one day, and she's like, Sharon, you need people that are happy at every single level in the organization. Not everybody wants to be at the top of the pile. I'm like,
Yeah.
that was 40 odd years ago, and that has stuck with me. And she's right. But just because somebody doesn't aspire for a higher level doesn't mean they can't grow horizontally. And that's why you have to be developing your folks, get them exposed to different things. And that's part of the connection part is, hey, I don't need to be the conduit to the trade association. You have a question, that's a regulatory question. Talk to this person directly. Fill me in afterwards, it's okay. But I don't need to play the game of telephone because, one of the things we all have to recognize as leaders, we're not going to be around forever.
Right.
And you have to get people to, establish their own connections and stand on their own 2 feet. So you got to be developing them as you go along. Otherwise, you really don't belong in that leadership role.
No, because humans just by nature, right? We are seekers. We seek new experiences. We seek new things. We look at new ways to do things, even if it's defined our own definition, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think, like you said earlier, it looks different for each person, but yet, even if I'm happy in this role doing my thing, like I'm still seeking, maybe to try it in a different way, or maybe to dabble over here. And I think that's a really important part because I think sometimes, I don't know if you've run across this, but developing for a long time seems synonymous. I have to get more coffee in to get that out easier. With like having to climb the ladder and this expectation. And that's not the path for everybody.
And, so the ladder, I used to use Career Lattice. I've got a couple of professor friends who invite me in to speak to their classes every semester. And it's about connecting and networking and, interviewing and all that stuff. And I always used to talk about it being a career lattice because the CEO of tomorrow, if that's what you aspire to be, is not going to have a direct pipeline. I'm a dinosaur. I've been in food safety, quality, technical services my entire career. And I've been very fortunate in my career. But try different experiences, try supply chain, try this. Well, Maggie Palmer, whom I met last year at the Women in Agribusiness Conference, talks about career jungle gym. Think about it. Now it's 3-dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you find yourself hanging by your knees from the top rung going, I hope I don't fall and crack my head open. But it really is different. There's different experiences, whether they're, and there can be lateral. It just helps you develop and grow as a person.
Yeah. And it's, there's some statistic out there that even says something like, it's like 70% of people see that lack of development holds them back from reaching their full potential. And I think about how many people we have on our teams where if we're not developing them, look at all that like extra brain power, all that capacity, all those ideas, like all of that is like just sitting there below the surface, just waiting for someone to be like, let's open this up.
My team at US Foods and I always said together we're smarter,
Yeah.
because we are.
Yeah.
We absolutely are.
Yeah.
Three
That's
heads
me.
are better than one, and seven heads can get a little noisy, but you know what? Everybody's got something to contribute.
And it's fascinating that you talked about, I forgot her name. Was it Maggie from Women in Ag?
Meggie, Meggie,
MEG.
Maggie Palmer.
So I at Food Safety Summit a couple of weeks ago, somebody said, well, let's face it, it's not like the next CEO of our company is coming from the food safety quality area. And I said, whoa, why not?
That's
Like,
right.
what makes us, and so I think even challenging some of these beliefs about what development looks like and the different lattice or paths we can take, because why not? Like, I don't know any other area that knows every part of the business and has something to play in all of those areas. I mean, like safety does, there's other support functions, but like we can think bigger than what we have today. And
Absolutely.
I'm going to put a plug in because our IAFP PDG is developing food safety professionals, and we're doing a pitch slam on roles. Because people are like, we don't even know half the cool roles out there, or new roles, or futuristic roles. So we're like, let's do a pitch slam. So if you're thinking like, I'd like to know more about this role, or this role is really cool, I wish more people knew about it, like we have a nomination form out there. Let me know. I'll drop it in the link.
Perfect. No, I think that's great. And I can think of some examples of folks along the way. You know, Doug Sutton was head of R&D when I got to Smithfield. He's now running the operations over at Smithfield. So Alex Josowitz was a technical sales rep at Sterilex and went on to become the CEO. So it is not out of the realm.
It is not.
Really is not. So
the world is our oyster.
But if that's what you're interested in doing.
Yes. And if you're like, I'm good right here, good. Be the best version of you right here.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And that brings me to one of my other rules about, I always expected people in their role to be the technical expert in that role. Mm-hmm. But if I've done I'm going to put you into something that's not quite what you're used to doing, because I put Doug over to food safety quality at one point in Smithfield, then it's my responsibility as your one up to make sure that you get all the support and technical information and everything else that you need to be successful. But when you're in that role, you can't know everything, but that's where that network comes into play. I may not know the answers to everything, but I know who to go to get them.
Yeah.
And that's where your network comes into play.
Yeah. And that's so powerful because like no one person or no one company can have all the experiences. And so the only way that we are able to even sometimes supplement or create even new possibilities is by hearing about what other things have happened and those outcomes. But I do like how you talk about, as the leader, like when I have somebody in this role, like it's my responsibility to also make sure they're having success. So if I may just put somebody in a role or promote them or they get a new role and I'm like, good luck with that. And I expect you to make sure you you have to be the driver of your own development. I mean, we do need people to take ownership, but I think it also is not on us as leaders, as humans, but also on behalf of our organization, isn't it? To make sure this person is having success.
And I was talking to one of my women mentees yesterday, and we talked about that young professional group, like AMSA, which I'm a member. We have a lot of student programs, and poor Colette Castor, I have not talked to her about this yet. So we have a lot of student programs, but then you go out into the workplace and it's that 1 to 7 year, 1 to 8 year. If your own organization doesn't have development type programs, what can we do to help support, outside of, again, I've got several mentors or mentees, but what are the programs such as, not a plug, not a commercial for what you guys do, but a commercial for what you guys do. What are those other things that people can avail themselves of to get
But
those development, to get that
opportunity.
development that they need?
Well, and I think, but like you said, there's a lot of spaces out there. So there's different groups. So whether it's like we were just talking about women in meat, the women group, whether it's, I mean, right, we've been talking about a lot of ones for women, but there's lots of groups out there. And ours is one as well, Catalyst Community. But like, how do you find a space where you do have this group to help support you? Because I think, Dick, you're talking about, right, like being a great collaborator and a mentor and sharing experiences. It's a really powerful way because we all carry these experiences. And when we share them, it helps people not feel alone, but it also helps generate new ideas. It doesn't mean it's not always intended to be like, you should do what I did, but like, hey, here's one idea that worked. What else could we work on? Or what else could that look like for you?
And sharing the experience. Kim Rice and I talked about this at the summit the other week, and sharing them in the form of storytelling. Just if you lecture to somebody, I don't know about you, how many classes you slept through in college. I had a few. But if you're weaving this story and people can then see themselves, oh, well, I didn't quite have that experience, but I can extrapolate out to what it is that I do. And that's one of the other things that I see in our food industry is we're very siloed. Oh, that worked in meat and poultry. It's not going to work over here. Or that worked in dry goods. It's not going to work over here. And we can all learn from each other, just even within the food space.
It's amazing, the different pockets of people doing amazing work, but just being able to help kind of like cross-pollinate everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's funny you mentioned that, because I think one of the most impactful conferences I ever went to was one where I think when it floated across like my desk, I was like, that's not me. And I don't even remember what it actually was, but it was, something that had like some marketing and other stuff. And I was kind of like, that's in my area. I'm over here. But being able to be in a space where I got to think completely different than what I was used to on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the things that then I was like, wow, I see how this over here can apply this way, or this concept could actually work over here. And so whether it's in our industry or even outside of our industry, there's a lot of cool stuff happening.
And just a word about conferences for those that send their good on you when you send your junior, or you're not sending your VPs and your directors. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they come back and they're full of great ideas, you need to be listening and you need to be acting, even if you can't do some of the things, but having that conversation, because otherwise you may as well not have sent them at all. You've just crushed their spirits. And I remember going to meetings, and you come back, you're like, oh my God, we got to do all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, we're not going to. It's like, why did you bother investing and sending me?
Yeah.
So yeah, but looking at things in a different way. I mean,
I know we're talking a little bit about rules. That was one of the rules I always had with my team, which they all bought into, which was great. Well, some more than others. But right, if we're going on a trip, like what are the 3 things we want to get out of it? And then when you get back, 3 things to share and 3 things to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not overwhelming. We're not going to have you put a PowerPoint together, any of that. But like share something that was insightful, and then what can we do to make sure that we carry it forward? So.
And Dick, I see your comment about starting your team meetings with successes and strategies. I agree. We also started with either a dad joke or a piece of trivia, and any celebrations, any things, and they could be things that people in other departments had done well, or had contributed, or had somehow risen to the top of, hey, I want to give this person a shout out. Recognition is great, as is sharing the struggles as you put up there, because somebody else may have the answer. Totally agree.
Yes, it is all important. So speaking of rules,
number 3.
Yeah, what was number 3?
That if you are that leader for food safety quality in your facility, and you have a seat, hopefully you have a seat on that plant leadership team, you better be an active, engaged, all in member of that leadership team.
Mm.
And, I always tell my people, you don't have a dotted line to the plant manager because I need you to be able to have that separation. But you are part of that team. You will contribute. You will be actively engaged, and you have that equal seat at the table. And make sure you don't squander that by sitting in the back and not being participative, and not offering up your ideas, because you are just as important member as the head of maintenance, or the head of sanitation and all those other things. You have that seat at the table, use it. Absolutely use it.
Couldn't agree more. And I'm curious, was this something you always had in place, or is there a story behind how this one came to be number 3 on the list?
Well, I mean, as we've already discussed, I can't hold a job. So I never really thought about it, because in all of my roles up until I moved to Canada, that was how the structure always was. So I never thought anything of it. And Maple Leaf had changed that structure with my arrival, and so I had never thought about it until that point, and that's how we were structured. And then there's been some other places where I've worked where there's a dotted line. No, there's not. Sorry, but there's not. But I will guarantee you, my person will be an active, engaged participant. But if there is ever a conflict of what to do, they need to feel that they can absolutely raise the flag at any time. And, I would say, with my first job notwithstanding, I would say certainly it's gotten a lot better. And the reason I say my first job notwithstanding is Bob Jackson was the plant manager at the Land of Frost facility in Hammond, Indiana. He had come out of retirement to run this plant for the Van Eckert family. And my boss, Bob Culler, the two of them held people accountable. I remember shutting the floor down one day for product on the floor, and plant manager found the supervisor and said, he said to the supervisor, "Why did Sharon have to shut your floor down?" Not coming to me and saying, "Why did you shut the floor down?" Because it was evident. And but that's how I was raised. I thought nothing of it, because that's how my parents, raised my brothers and me. So didn't think anything of it. Then you start to go to different places. I talked earlier about you learn good things and bad things from every place you work. It was like, wow, not everybody operates like that.
Like that.
How fortunate was I?
Right, but to have that as your first role, but how that solidified, like you said, this is how we grew up, and this is how we're working.
How it's supposed, how it works everywhere, And boy, was that an eye opener that no, it didn't always work that way everywhere else. So, but yeah, so no particular story behind that other than reinforcing. There's no dotted line, at least in any of the organizations I've been associated with. Because the other, rule number 4, which I've added along the way, is having a good BS meter. I talked earlier about connecting dots from one area to another.
Mm-hmm.
And just because you may be making Arby's roast beef is what you know better than anything, you still should be able to go into a chicken plant or the Jamocha sauce syrup plant, or because operations are operations, sanitation is sanitation. So many things are the same. And you can tell when somebody's blowing smoke up your skirt. And, just having that really good BS meter is critical. And if you're not sure, that's when you start asking some probing questions. Or you phone a friend. to use your expression from earlier. Like, I just heard this, or today you can text, right? Remember the old BlackBerry days? You could send somebody a quick message in the meeting, or Blueberry or whatever the heck they were. I miss my BlackBerry.
Blueberry, BlackBerry, whatever. One of
I
those.
miss my keyboard. I had it held together with tape, and my husband's like, "You really need a new phone." No.
But I think that one can be really hard, especially I think when people are new to maybe I'm going to say early career, because like you maybe have some information, you come in and people can be like, I am the expert. I've been here for 30 years. I know this is how it runs. I know this is how it works. And I don't know about you, but I've had those moments where I'm like, really? God, it's not quite what I thought or what I learned. And then I go in this like ask mode, or I go investigate mode. But that can be really compelling, like for someone to be like, this is how it is. And it may make you kind of question, where have you been? So when you have those, is that, what's the clue here? Is it like when you have the BS meter, it's almost like that gut feel, right? Where you're like, something's off here.
Yeah, you don't really know what the heck you're talking about. Because my experience, again, it might be in a different field, but my experience tells me something else. But to your point, that's when you go into investigative mode. Show me why. Can you show me that? Because I'd like to understand better. One of my favorite responses to a regulator saying, you need to do thus and such. Okay. Not familiar with that directive, regulation, policy memo, whatever. To very politely say, hey, I'm not familiar with that. Would you share with me the regulatory reference so that I can put it into my on the shelf, or put it into my file so I have it for future reference? I remember getting a call early on when I worked at IBP, one of our ground beef customers. My inspector says I need to be testing your product. I said, your inspector's wrong. But do this. Just go in and just say, hey, you know what? When I was reading through the directive, I didn't see that. Could you share with me exactly where this is so I can, again, reference it and have it in my asset plan? I said, then give me a call back. Let me know how that goes. Yeah, half an hour later, they don't have one. It was how they thought it should be. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be mean about it. You don't have to be unkind. You can just, I am not familiar with that. Same thing when somebody's telling you something, you're like, can you show me? Because I really want to learn.
I think that is awesome as you talk about the BS meter. Like, you can still approach it with kindness. I mean, I'm sure being in the meat industry, you have a few moments or a few stories where you're like, I'm going to show you on this one. Because sometimes that BS meter, I don't know about you, but I've felt like, ooh, challenge on. But we have to.
Butchers at least don't bang their knives on the table anymore when you walk into a processing room. So that's good. That's progress.
But yeah, I think that is an awesome rule. Like have the BS meter on, and don't be afraid to lean into that when you sense it.
That's right. And again, you can ask questions, mm-hmm. and do it in a polite, professional manner. Not with a sense of always assume positive intent, which I know is really hard sometimes. True. But assume positive intent. I mean, there are things that don't cost us anything. Everything from kindness to smiling to picking up after your dog in my neighborhood. If any of my neighbors are watching this, stopping at the stop sign at the corner. I mean, these things, they don't cost you anything.
No.
And you get so much more back. Just being professional, being polite, and asking questions.
It helps. It makes a difference.
And then when, you find out the person really didn't know what they're talking about, you, of course, thank them profusely. And if you find out, then be kind in how you broach the subject. It's not, in the next staff meeting, well, I just proved, so-and-so wrong. It's, approaching that so-and-so one-on-one and saying, hopefully they've, since you're discovering this together, it's a kind of an aha moment for them. And then, hey, things have changed. The world has changed. Technology has changed. Things have changed. Rules have changed. It's okay.
Yeah.
But together we're smarter. You've got the history, but now there's some new information, and it's a different way of doing things.
Mm-hmm. Which is really powerful, because I think that's the whole, like, it's us, like we are in this together. There is no them. No, it's we're all in this together.
I hate them. I hate that.
I'm always like, who are them?
All right, so this is like hate. This is like really loathing. I have this 1-page document on rules for correspondence. Speaking of rules, and it all starts with, if it's important, pick up the phone. That's like in red font, 20 inches high. If it's important, pick up the phone. And I go on to talk about, beware the reply all, and there's lots of other little things in there. And I've now squeezed it down to a size 9 font because I keep adding stuff. But one of the things that makes me crazy is you're in a facility and the plant manager is referring to a department as they. Like, who's they? Who's they? Is they maintenance? Because if they is maintenance, they is you. Because they are part of your organization.
Like, see us all here together?
We screwed this up. Or, they can succeed. Maintenance can succeed. But if something has gone wrong, take ownership. They're part of your organization. Don't talk about, you don't talk about your family, at least maybe most of us don't, as they. Mm-hmm. No, it's my husband, it's my kids, it's my family, it's my dog, it's, not they. Who's they? Oh, my kids. Calling the kids they. So it's just one of my, that's just like fingernails on a chalkboard. Sorry.
No,
didn't mean to digress, Jill.
No, it's not, because those are the things that come up. And I had a coach early on who said, like, every problem is a we problem. It's us. Like, we are always together in the problem. When it's solved, they did a great job. They made it happen. That's how you lead people. And that's how you help lift and really acknowledge. And I was like, that's brilliant. It's so simple, but yet makes such a big difference.
Absolutely. It's the old, praise in public and correct in private.
Important.
Nobody likes to be called out in public.
More people need to know that.
Even though I know sometimes we're all sorely tempted to do so. Mm-hmm. But,
Yes. So as we go along the list of rules, you do have another one that I think we've referred to a little bit through some of the others, but I love that you have it as a rule.
So knowing your resources and not being afraid to ask for help. Yeah. I talk to a couple classes and I tell them, if you don't have somebody that knows a topic, take your alma mater or where you're currently going to school, you haven't graduated yet, and plug in the topic and put it into, if only there was this app on the internet that could tell us the things. I found the world's leading expert on rare earth magnets once, because I needed to learn about rare earth magnets. Yeah. Okay. Plugged in Cornell, rare earth magnets, got to some speaker, and he's like, I'm not really the one you want to talk to. You want to talk to so-and-so, who gave me 45 minutes of his time. Dang. I mean, just totally free. And just,
And you asked.
Gig was happy to help. So, have your own, people have heard me say this before, have your own personal board of directors. Have that group of people. They're going to tell you your baby's ugly, if it is. They're going to tell you when you screwed up. They're going to cry with you. They're going to pray for you. They're going to, dare I say, have bail money and duct tape, probably on the show, probably not.
We get to do whatever we want here. So,
okay. But, have that group of people that you can count on, rely upon, because that's how you grow your network of experts. Yeah, I don't remember how we met, Jill. I honest to God don't. But I know, I can count on you and Tia for a certain skill set. I have other colleagues I count on for other things. I am not the Excel whiz. I have people look at me like I'm like, what's wrong with you? Well, I'm sorry. I'm just not.
And we're glad that there are people who are Excel whizzes.
And my mentee offered to help me with something with a pivot table yesterday. I was so excited. Um, I said, now you can help me build it, but then you have to show me how to use it, you know.
Yeah.
But not being afraid to ask for help, because you can't know everything. You really can't, you know.
No.
And when you pretend to, you're doing yourself a disservice
Yeah.
because somebody else's bullshit meter is going to pick up on that.
Yeah, that's a hard road. That's a hard road. But I love that you talk about the examples you gave, like this personal board of directors, like the ones who know you, and like this like that's a different ask than even like this rare earth magnets. But like everybody's like, yes, I will step in. And I think it's always fascinating because people can't read our minds. So when you think, oh, I wish somebody could just help me with this, well, most people are so caught up in what we're doing ourselves. Like 99% of our thoughts are about ourselves. So if that 1% happens to get out and is about somebody else, hooray, but that doesn't happen often. So when you need something, it's a good way for people to pause and go like, I am so happy I get to help in this space. It's like
You
so
know,
rewarding for others too, even if it's like, I don't know, but this person might. So like, step
you know,
into
we were talking before the show started about one of my favorite authors, Kelly McDonald, and I listened to a session she did the other day, and it was Ask Kelly Anything, and she shared this gem: what don't ask people if they can help you, because that's a yes no response. Say, I need your help with fill in the blank.
yeah.
Hang on, let me close the door a second.
Oh, that's right. But yeah, it is different because it's like, I actually need your help because I know you are an expert, or I know you can guide me to the next thing. Different.
Don't give people that opportunity to say no,
Mhm.
but be specific. There was
Mhm.
there was a couple other little tidbits she shared, which don't come to mind right now. I did put them on LinkedIn because I got to do stuff when it happens. Otherwise,
Oh, yeah. That is a good one because even when you think about like just being in our space, right? Oftentimes you might have to ask somebody to do something different or for this run or whatever, right? If you're like, hey, can you do this? I mean, it's a yes or no. Somebody once gave me this advice, which is similar. It's like, would you be willing? Would you be willing? Most people are willing to step in, and then they feel like they also have a choice. So depending
that's a
on,
good one.
like you said, situational, like where you are, like I need your help can be really powerful.
I heard a really good, just pivoting a little bit, a really good icebreaker the other day. Because one of the things I've adopted using is, instead of tell me about yourself, tell me your story. Janet Helms shared this one on a breakout session.
Yeah.
What makes you smile? I mean, what a great question to ask, right? What makes you smile? Because you just broke out in a smile when I said that, Jill. You
Yeah.
know, what makes you smile?
That's
That's
because Janet and I were talking about icebreakers and stuff.
it's
That would be
brilliant.
one, but yeah. I love that you're like branching out to try something new too with people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then Katie Beecham and I were talking about there's a significant percentage of people that have stitches under their chin.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, I slipped in a bathtub apparently when I was 5 years old.
Oh,
My
that's
daughter's best
your
friend.
chin stitches story?
Well, and there's various different ways. My daughter's best friend did it when the two of them decided it'd be a great idea to take a sleeping bag, get inside of it, and ride down the stairs in our house in Sioux City.
Sounds very reasonable.
5 stitches. So that's another ice breaking question. So, who in the room has stitches under their chin? But what makes you smile is a little bit better for me.
That was kind of fun. Yes. So I know Sharon, there's probably people out there who are like, these are awesome rules. Yes, I want to have rules. I think these are great. Like, how did you come up with these rules?
You know, just over time. You know, when you're a young manager, my first my first managerial experience, it was great. There were several of us Arby's auditors who were based in beef plants, and I got promoted to be the senior person over several. Well, there were four other people, three of whom I was a good 10, 15 years younger. The other one was closer in age. And it's difficult enough going from peer to supervisor. Throw in the age group, throw in it's the 80s and the gender factor and all that other stuff. Um, and that's when I just started developing who do I want to be
Mm.
as a manager. I had several bosses at Arby's over my 9 years, learned what I wanted to be, what I didn't want to be, and continued to build on that. So a lot of them have just, I didn't have the rule about senior leadership for the food safety quality member until I got back into manufacturing. And again, that really didn't gel until when I started at Maple Leaf, and we changed the structure to be that. Never occurred to me otherwise. So, so some of them, again, they've come along the way. I didn't set out one day going, okay, I'm going to write some rules.
Here's the list.
One, yes, I did. That was email was relatively new. People are listening to this going, when did we not have
it? Was relatively new back in the day.
Back in the day, that's right. So that's when I did create this rules of the road for correspondence, because anybody who knows me well knows that I am a grammar nerd, and thank Mrs. Helen Lenormand, my 7th and 8th grade English teacher in old Charles DeWolf Elementary. She instilled in all of us just the rules and good grammar. And yes, I do try to make sure even my texts are, appropriate. The written word is so important, and shorter is better. I'm trying to think if it was Lincoln or if it was who it was. I would have written you a shorter letter if I had more time. Because words have meaning. And it's important to write in a way your audience is going to understand. You don't have to use every 25-cent word that you know. Sometimes it does not make you sound smarter. It makes you sound the opposite, especially if you use it inappropriately. So just the written word is very important to me. So my correspondence stuff, yeah, that was thoughtful. These other ones have just come along the way organically as I've moved along. So,
well, and I like that perspective, because these are your rules, and some of them may resonate with people who are in the audience. Great. But I think it also, like you said, these are things that as you went through your career, either developed or you saw a need here to be like, this is part of who I am as a leader, and some of the things that we know, that we can do better together when we have these in place.
Yeah.
So I'm curious too, on the other side, how well have these been received? What have you noticed as you've gone through with these and been like, here are some of the rules?
I think generally people like rules. It's like your kids, right? If you don't have rules with your kids, it's anarchy. It could be anarchy anyway. But I think once you lay them out and people understand them and they see that you yourself live by these, I will tell you, there was one instance where my rules for correspondence went over like a lead balloon. I had shared them with somebody who didn't work directly for me, and apparently I highly insulted him.
Oh.
I'm like, well, you know what? Too bad, so sad. The next time you reply all with thank you, I'm just going to take my rules and put them right back on your desk. So yes, but where the reply all, and not to call out because I can't remember who it was, but after Christmas, Maple Leaf was giving away all the poinsettias that had decorated the office. Gorgeous. To the first 25 or 50 people that said, yes, I would like one. So after the first 10 people replied all to everybody in the entire organization.
Wow.
That's why I like to, if you're, my other little tidbit, if you got to send them email to a lot of people, put all of them in the BCC line. That way, if they reply all, it only goes back to you. So I sent
That's
a
why
note.
the rules are important.
So I sent a note to the person who sent it out, and I said, I would add this: anybody that did reply all is automatically disqualified from getting a point set up.
They're like, that's the holiday spirit, Sharon.
I just like, honest to God, don't we all get enough email that this is the last thing we needed is, 14 people saying, yes, I want a point set up.
But right, part of communicating what helps us be successful, like this is part of it, right? Because otherwise emails get cluttered and then everybody has way too much email already. So it doesn't mean never do it, but right, maybe reconsider the next time you do reply all. Does everybody need to know?
Does everybody need to hear your thank you?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they do. Sometimes they do, to your point. Sometimes they do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, generally, because I'm very upfront about it, like this is what you're going to get from me, and this is what I require of you.
Hey, and that's all about being a good leader, right? If we're going to have success together, this is what you can expect from me, but this is also what I need from you.
That's right.
And I think that's why even as we think about these rules, once again, if you're out there listening and thinking, what is it that is important for me having success? And maybe you're the leader, maybe you're an individual contributor, but you still have things that help you be more successful. And it's okay to have, here are the things that help me work best and have the best outcomes, and share those. So I love, Sharon, that you kind of put this out here to be here's making rules and helping us all be successful, working under the same set of expectations. Doesn't mean that there isn't any leeway or discussion, but when we're all on the same page, we get a lot more done together.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, I know the hour goes fast. Thank you so much for walking through these with us. And Dick, thank you for being here and putting some comments in and asking some great questions and just enriching the conversation.
Absolutely.
Very much.
Using people's names often, everyone likes to hear their name. Everybody loves recognition. Well, there's probably a person or two on the planet that don't like recognition, at least publicly. But yes, people do appreciate hearing their names.
Very much. So Sharon, if people want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to get hold of you?
Outlook. LinkedIn is goes straight to my Outlook email address.
Okay.
And or my email address is skkb@outlook.com. Awesome. And looking forward to hearing from people, and find your posse, as Janelle Yancey told me to say, instead of board of directors. So find your posse, and
and away you go.
On. And away you go. That's right.
Yes.
Thanks, Jill. I appreciate the opportunity, and also thank you, Dick, for joining in. Appreciate it.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Sharon. And thank you all out there for being part of our show today. And once again, if you're on replay, if you put comments or questions in, we will get back to you. So
have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Bye.